Right, hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's video. And today we have a look at something slightly different on the channel. Today we're having a look at the SAD-001. Yes, this is the board out of a PS4 Slim, out of one of the new Slim PlayStation 4s. So we're going to zoom out here just so we can get a good overview of what's going on. So this is just going to be a general overview of the board and a really quick look at what's going on and what the differences in components and specifications are, just so we can try and get a little bit of a handle as to what's going on with the new revision board. So this is the replacement, of course, for the old 1200 series PlayStation 4. The SAC-001 revision motherboard, of course, was what was in those. So this is like the newer version, if you will. So first of all, let's take a look and see what's going on with the APU. So we'll put some general shots of the board in later on and we'll circle the main components, but as you can see here, this is the CXD 943GB. This is the PS4 APU, which of course on the older boards used to be the 925 and 26G respectively on the older 1000 and 1200 series PS4s. It does look slightly different, so you'll notice now it just has like the metal skeleton around the very edge. There's nothing on the middle. You know, all the little components and jumpers and shit are all on the outside edge there. This is the die, of course. There you go, diffused in Taiwan and made in Malaysia. So if we go and have a look further around the board, just up and to the right of that we have the South Bridge. This is the CXD 936G. That is the same component as what was found in the older 1200 PS4, if I remember rightly, 36G. Okay, and then we've got the same sort of Samsung little secondary RAM there for you. To the right of the South Bridge, of course, we have the MXIC flash chip there. Let's just see if we can get a better look as to the serial number on there. It's an MX25L25635F, so it's the same part as what was on the SAC revision board. So if you've got a socket for those, good news, that should work. It's the same size flash and everything, so that will be more or less identical to what we're used to seeing over there. The next point, and the interesting one, is the Hdmi port is a slightly different revision. The bad news, of course, is that this particular machine is here with me today for a Hdmi port replacement. And there it is, and as you can see it's had a bit of a whack and the back is stuck out. So we'll be having a look at this and how to replace that. It is a slightly different part. So now for the bad news. And the trouble is that Sony have actually flipped top and bottom side of the motherboard, which means that the ports are now facing the other way up, i.e. they're back to front compared to the SAA, SAB and SAC revision motherboards, which means that these now require their own specific port for the SAD revision boards, and they are incredibly expensive at the moment, so between £10 and £15 in the UK. So if you do have one of these to swap, you can't use the older ports, and that's going to make these rather expensive to repair, unfortunately. That's the Ethernet port, top of the Ethernet port there, and that, of course, at the other side is the auxiliary in where your camera and stuff goes. This down here is a S-Tech MS242. I presume that's something to do with Ethernet, so maybe an Ethernet controller IC, something like that. To the left of that is the usual SATA hard disk drive connector, and the main power plug is there. It's a lot shorter on these boards, which should mean working underneath the microscope camera is going to be a hell of a lot easier in future. Coming further down is where we find our Renesas controller IC, so it's good to see that Sony hasn't abandoned the idea of combining the Blu-ray daughter and motherboards, so we can't get any 35882 from people swapping them out, which is always good and nice. So the particular part number on this one, and it's fairly hard to see underneath the scope, I'll grant you, but it is an R9J0G011FP1. It's a custom SCEI component made on behalf of Sony from Renesas, so it's the same sort of thing. and well, as I say, I'm sure that at some point these things are going to be blowing FETs and everything else, just like the older ones used to do. It looks like there are, so we've got F6202 and things over here, so there's still fuses and everything else to check in the event that this thing does go bang, but hopefully these will prove to be a little bit more reliable than what they used to be. There's the big there's F5103 there. There is the thermistor here, which is like a resettable fuse in this particular instance. So yeah, you know, there's a few bits and pieces going on there. The two USB ports, of course, are down the front. They are stood up quite high from the board, and probably trying to show you this on the scope camera, not ideal. Like I said, we'll have a look at some proper photos and things of the board later on at the end of the video. CMOS battery goes down the front, but they are stood up and they're fairly tall and fairly narrow across the bottom of the base, so you can bet that too much force on top there could result in a bit of damage maybe later on. The good news, of course, from the HDMI point of view, and I forgot to cover this one earlier, is, well, I say it's good news, it's kind of good news. This is the same old MN864729 IC that we're used to seeing on the SAC revision motherboards. So they're still fairly expensive, unfortunately, and these are a bit of a bastard to replace compared to the older ones on the 1000 series. But, you know, beggars can't be choosers. At least it's the same component and not a different one that, you know, we're going to have to pay through the nose to find replacements for. So that's never a bad thing. Underneath, of course, we have the Siscon Chip. This is an A01COL2. This is the same as what we'd find in a SAC board there, so that's all good. We have across the other side as well, down this bottom border, this is where all our bits and pieces plug in for our Blu-ray drive. So we have a ribbon there, we have the main I/O ribbon there, and the third ribbon is a lot further down, but you can see there's a big copper border around it all here, which sort of differentiates the two sides of it. And we also have the same BD7764 chip, again found on the SAC boards, so a lot of those parts look to be interchangeable. F6001 there as well. That's probably this one here. So yeah, you know, we still have the same old fuse set up to look into. Not entirely sure where the FETs on this board will live to drive that circuit. I'm sure we'll be able to work it out should we ever need to. And let's face it, I'm sure at some point we are going to need to do that. I'm just trying to think where else. Oh yes, there's an interesting new location for the Wi-Fi controller chip. It's right down in this bottom corner now. And this particular part number, and again it's partly because the sun's glaring in through the window this afternoon, which is making it quite difficult to read some of these bits and pieces, but we can see there it's 7002 revision 1.0. The other marking on it is A8474A634C8F. The model number is a J20H091, which I do believe were used on some SAC boards as well. So it's basically just a small upgrade on the SAC revision motherboard by the looks. A lot of the components do seem to be very similar, aside from the APU. They're very similar to what we are used to seeing. I'm pretty sure the 936G is the same as what was on the SAC boards. No doubtably the Renesas chip is the same, the HDMI encoder IC is the same, the Siscon is the same, the motor driver IC for the Blu-ray, the BD7764 is the same, the Wi-Fi module appears to be the same. So a lot of the components from SAC boards will be interchangeable with components on these, which is fantastic news from our point of view as far as getting replacements go, and we're not going to have to stock more parts for different boards, which is fantastic from our sort of point of view as repairers. So, I mean, there you go. It's a really quick overview as to what the components are on here and whatnot. So I dare say we're going to see similar things as to what we saw before, i.e. we've still got the MN 864-729 encoder IC. We do still have the 4 filters coming from the back of the HDMI port. The HDMI port appears to be a slightly different design. We're going to try and drop that off and put a replacement on for this one on another video. Depending on which one gets up first, if the HDMI replacement tutorial for that board goes up first, I'll put the link in the description below. Otherwise, just keep an eye out for it on the channel. They do appear to be a slightly different footprint to before. Whether the old ones will fit or not, I'm not sure. These look a little bit shorter, so these do look a slightly different revision of parts to what was on the older one. But again, you know, that will, well, we'll see in time. I mean, if push comes to shove, you could probably just short those across with a bit of wire. Okay, and then also just underneath here, just as a quick passing reference, we have the same 8 RAM chips with the same memory density and everything as we had before. And which one's that? That's this one, isn't it? So yeah, these are Micron chips. So I think there were Samsung on the SACs, but they are the same 8 chips with the same amount of capacity as what was on the SACs. Whether they are interchangeable or not, I don't really know at this point, because I've not had to take one off. As I say, this is the first machine I've had in here with this particular, you know, to look at. So I dare say we'll find out at some point. We have these, you know, the power regulator capacitors here. Look, there's only 2 of them on the SAD vision board. There's a whole boatload of them on the back side of the 1100s. There was a few more. There's a couple less, sorry, on the SACs, and then we're down to just the 2. So this appears to be quite a power efficient design, which is never a bad thing. So yeah, that is about it. Most of the components, as far as the HDMI circuit go, look to be on the back side of the circuit these days. So, you know, it does seem to be simplified quite a bit from what it ever used to be. Still got the same old diodes, 2K resistors there on the left most probably, and that's the new port there. We've got this little bit of grounding tape there on the back side of it, metal tape. So yeah, that's it. Like I say, it's a really quick overview, and we'll get a close-up of the board, and we'll try and get a what they call it, a pin-out for you, in the event you're going to have to replace some of these ports. But that's that, ladies and gentlemen, in a nutshell. So it's a quick one, but nevertheless a quick, really useful, I think, overview as to what may go on with these boards. So I will see you, boys and girls, shortly on the next vid. As I say, we are going to do a teardown. We're going to do a HDMI port replacement on this board. So I will film that next. So thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned for the next one. I've been Andy Paul. You've been fantastic, and I will see you guys and girls on the next video. So for me, it's bye bye for now. Many thanks for watching then, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, then why not check out these recommendations below. Also, please remember to comment, rate, and of course subscribe to the channel if you found this useful. We've plenty more content on there, and there's lots more to come.